just a little discomfort. Ours is a religion whose visibility is a clear sign of suffering, discomfort, and hardship. Upon entering any Catholic church, the visible sign is a picture of one tortured to death on the cross. Christ hangs on the cross and shows us that though without sin, he had to bear discomfort, torture, shame, and public disgrace for our sake in order to remedy that fault brought by our first parents in the Garden of Eden. The cross, though a sign of discomfort, becomes God's way of saving humanity from sin and shame. In ancient Palestine, the cross had a terrible meaning. Crucifixion was a vicious way of executing people, and it was reserved only for those who were not Roman citizens. Only the worst criminals were crucified. The Jews who heard Jesus' call for taking up one's cross in order to follow him must have been horrified, because crucifixion was never their portion and call. The Jews were never executed on the cross. So how would Jesus ask them to take up their cross and follow him? Yet that is what Christ wants from his disciples. The cross stands for unconditional forgiveness of those who call us enemies. It stands for total emptying of ourselves, of our wants and needs, for the sake of another person. And it stands for the courageous, consistent choosing to do what is right and just because we love God. The main paradox of the Christian life is that we must lose life in order to find life. We must suffer a little bit of discomfort for ourselves and others, and we must die to serve in order to rise again. Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. We live in a world where finding our lives is the paramount ambition of the majority of people. Shine from any least discomfort. But Jesus Christ tells us very clearly that this should not be our main concern. What he asks of us is that we should lose our life, which means that we must stop living for ourselves alone and go out of our comfort zones to live for others. We must forget our own security and work towards the security of others. There is no policy of safety for Christians, because our safety is in the cross, and our safety comes from being other-centered and helping others in their need. We must learn to take our own health a little bit less seriously in order to care for those who are sick and hungry. We must stop polluting the environment so that the rest of the world will have the clean air to breathe. All these things will fall into place when we lose ourselves in caring for others, and when we bear with a little discomfort for the sake of others. Our first reading furnishes us with examples of people who went out of their way to care for the prophet. The prophet Elisha is taken care of by a family. He is offered a house to stay whenever he is in town, and in return he offers this woman the promise of a child. This reminds us of Abraham and Sarah, who, after entertaining the three unknown guests, have promised with the gift of a child in their old age. In this, we see the readiness in them to carry the cross, to bear a little bit of discomfort, to entertain those they do not know, people they have never met. All of that for the sake of the gospel and for the sake of Jesus Christ. Our gospel has Jesus Christ reminding the crowds that whoever receives the disciples receives him. The Jews knew and believed, according to their custom, that to receive someone's envoy was the same as receiving that person. To receive the personal representative of the Pope was the same as receiving the Pope. And so they will go out of their way to make this happen in the same magnitude as they would have done if the Pope were to visit them. Today, when Jesus Christ reminds them that to receive the apostles is to receive him, it makes utter sense to them. And this means the same way they will receive Jesus and his message should be the same way they should receive his apostles and the message they bring. In Jewish law, the term for such authority, even when delegated, is called shalaya. A shalaya is a legal representative of someone, and he or she carries the same authority as the person. In this gospel passage, Jesus Christ is the shalaya of the Father. His apostles are the shalaya to Jesus, and we become the shalaya to the apostles and Jesus, bearing a little discomfort, sometimes much more, going out of our comfort zones, preaching that gospel which we will sometimes not want to, for the sake of others, as we struggle to represent Jesus and the Father in our daily struggles. As shalayas, sometimes the words of Shakespeare speak true to us. The bearer of bad news inflicts the teller. However, carrying our crosses, bearing some discomfort, representing Jesus Christ, being a shalaya, is more difficult now than it was then. We are plagued with all sorts of strange teachings and doctrines. No one wants to represent another person because we are not sure of their message. Many are afraid to identify with their religion because they will be laughed at. Many will rather not take the sign of the cross in public because it identifies them as Catholics, as pro-life. Sometimes we want to play safe and show how much we love our kids and grandkids more than God. But Jesus Christ reminds us when he says that we must not love children more than God, that if our love for them draws us and them farther from God, then we are doing the wrong thing. If our love for our kids and grandkids only make us play games on Sunday and do not pray, do not go to church or do good works on the Lord's Day, then we are not doing well. If our love for family and friends shuts our mouths from preaching the truth because it will hurt feelings, then we are not carrying our cross, nor are we willing to bear some discomfort for Christ. It is true, some situations can be difficult, but we remember Benedict XVI. You can speak the truth in charity. Caritas in veritate. Materialism and consumerism dominate our lives and turn our homes into isolated fortresses. Everything becomes mine, and I. A teacher once asked a student, what type of pronouns is mine? Mine and I, and the child responded, aggressive pronouns. We must go out of our comfort zones as the Shaliah of Jesus Christ. Society believes in competition, power, influence, and success. Jesus' argument is that when we work hard to ensure that everyone has enough, there will be enough for us as well. Hence, the questions we should ask are, am I living my life at the expense of others? Am I trying to live in solidarity with others? Would I bear some discomfort for the sake of Jesus Christ and others? Would I be a true Shaliah or a false one? Am I aware of people in my area who are in real need? In the words of Mother Teresa, the gospel is all written on our fingers. And to explain this, she held her fingers up and said, it is simple, 5 words. You did it for me. Whatever you do to the least of your brethren, you do it for Jesus Christ. Mother Teresa added, at the end of our lives, our 5 fingers will either excuse us or accuse us of doing it unto the least of these brethren of Jesus Christ. May Jesus Christ help us to go out of our comfort zone and to be other Christ to those we meet. Amen.